Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
It will be a while till I hold your hand. Till then, I'll be waiting for that day.
Season 6, Episode 9. Thanks for joining. I'm your host, Mike Wilner. Liz Wolfe, our co-host, is already up at the Gray Fox Bluegrass Festival in Oak Hill, New York, and I'll be headed that way soon myself. We are the podcast in residence at Gray Fox this year, and we are collecting your Gray Fox stories. So if you want to tell your Gray Fox story, schedule some time with us at the festival by clicking the link in the program notes. If you're not going to be at the festival and have a story to tell, drop me a line, mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com, and we'll set up some time to collect your story. So this week we get to talk with David Benedict. I first encountered him as a mandolin instructor on YouTube. He's got an incredibly effective beginner's course along with a lot of other materials on YouTube and Patreon, and we'll talk about that. Also, he and his wife Tabitha have a band called the Foreign Landers, which has been producing some great music. Also, we're going to test your mandolin knowledge with a quick quiz after the interview. So let's see how sharp your mandolin ear is. Okay, there's a bunch of great events coming up we wanted to make sure you're aware of. First up, the Augusta Heritage Center has its Bluegrass Week down in Elkins, West Virginia, August 3rd through 7th. It's a really well-arranged and well-organized camp. Everything is within a block or two of each other, right in the middle of Elkins. You'll have a great time. More locally, the Ashokan Center has its Bluegrass Week, August 10th through 16th. If you have not been to the Ashokan Center, it's a magical place. It's one of our iconic venues. You really want to get up there and experience it. And finally, September 4th through 6th, the Earl Scruggs Music Festival is taking place in Mill Spring, Western North Carolina. It's going to be a great time. We'll be down there as well. So a lot of stuff going on. Incredible festival season. There's yet even more coming up. So stay tuned. And before we get going, please remember to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Bluegrass Brooklyn. Brooklyn spelled BKLYN. You can drop us a line, mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com, if you have any ideas or suggestions or just want to say hi. We promise we'll respond. You can visit bluegrassbrooklyn.com. And if you're looking for gems in Uptown Manhattan, Bronx, Riverdale, New Jersey, and increasingly around the world, visit bluegrassgemsnearme.com. And if you want to reach out to Liz directly, you can do so by emailing liz@bluegrassgemsnearme.com. Okay, I think that's it. Let's roll. So here we are with David Benedict, mandolin player extraordinaire, YouTube personality as well. We've got a lot to talk about. David, first of all, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Mike.
Yeah, I think I have the upper hand here because I've gone through your mandolin lessons online and followed you. And, you bring a lot of your personality to your online presence. Your current project or band is the Foreign Landers. First, let's explain the name of the band.
Yeah, totally. Folks who like bluegrass old-time music, they probably know the name. It's from an old folk song called The Foreign Lander. I first heard it from Tim O'Brien on that Fiddler's Green album, which is one of my favorites. But there's some great versions from the Ritchie family from Kentucky way back in the day. And since then, it's been recorded by a lot of folks. And I always thought that would be a cool name for a band long before I met Tabitha, my wife and bandmate. And when Tabitha and I met, Tabitha is from Northern Ireland and she plays bluegrass with her brothers over there in a different band called Cup of Joe. And at the time I was playing in a band called Mile 12 up in Boston, and we both met at the IBMA convention in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Very nice.
Showcasing for the conference and different bands, and just stayed in touch. And I started to travel over there. We started dating long distance and got married back in 2019 before things got crazy with the pandemic. And so during lockdown, we were over in Northern Ireland together, and we just started making more music together. We had the free time and the space to do it. And I was like, this is the perfect time to start a band called the Foreign Landers. And the name just makes so much sense too, just because it tells our story. I grew up here in South Carolina, where we live now, and Tabitha, her whole family is from Northern Ireland, many, many generations back. And we both love bluegrass music, and we both love Irish music. I actually grew up playing in an Irish band here in South Carolina, while Tabitha grew up in Northern Ireland playing bluegrass because she thought that was normal. It's taken a while to find that common middle ground, but it's been really fun to explore both those sounds in this project, just because it feels like we have a lot more freedom than in some of the more strictly bluegrass settings that we've played in the past.
I guess there's a lot of relationship between Irish music and bluegrass music anyway, but it goes to show you how universal music actually is. I want to explore a little bit about the music. The album, Made to Wonder, that's mostly original tunes or all original tunes?
Yeah, there's a couple of covers. There's one, I Am a Youth Inclined to Ramble, which is, a fantastic traditional Irish song. So that was kind of like our nod to the traditional Irish scene. And then we also have one from this side of the Atlantic too. There's another one from Ola Belle Reed, Where the Wildflowers Grow. And we just kind of adapted a different version of that song because we love Ola Belle Reed's stuff as well. Of course, he wrote that amazing song, I've Endured. That's become quite the classic in bluegrass catalog too.
Of course, and High on the Mountain, many other things. Well, what struck me about the album was the range of musical, I'm not going to say genres, but musical expression. Everything from very slow contemplative music to blazing fast mandolin and solos. How difficult is it to encompass all of that range in your band?
It's not something we've maybe thought super intentionally about. In fact, sometimes I find we kind of have to rein ourselves in a bit. I don't know, like in other bands that I've played with, we just love all types of music. I love swing and jazz, and we love old country music. We love, pop as well, and all sorts of things like that. And it's hard just to kind of select the influences that you want to be your cohesive artistic voice. I feel like with this record, we've tried to maybe become a little bit more focused. We released another album a few years ago called Traveler's Rest, where it felt like our first big statement as a band, our first full-length album. But there was maybe a little bit more of that, let's try everything kind of vibe, where we had pedal steel on one track and electric guitar on another track. And I still love those songs, and it was really fun making that. But this album, we've tried to maybe make it a bit more cohesive, just kind of dig into the ideas that we love from the previous record and try to expand and iterate on those things. But yeah, it's like still comes across as maybe diverse, which I hope is a good thing in some ways too, because as much as I love bands that have distinct sounds, sometimes it can become bland, or it can become too repetitive, or a flavor that's too strong. So we try to keep it interesting just for our own sake.
Yeah. Now, bands I know who work with recording labels usually work with producers or A&R people who help them make those decisions about what goes on the album and how to keep the blend right. Are you doing this yourself, or do you have a producer?
Yeah, it's all in-house. We're a very DIY kind of band. In fact, the record was recorded here at home.
Cool.
We just kind of converted our living space into a recording studio with utility blankets. And I like to say we made like an adult blanket for it and pillow for it, because that's where it was. Like there was no place to sit because all the couches and chairs were used as sound treatment, just, stacked up against windows and walls and trying to create a more of a cohesive sound. But it was very DIY. We don't have a record label or a producer for this album. I've worked with producers in the past, which has been great and such an awesome learning experience, and taken a lot of what I've learned from that into this record. Both me and Tabitha were kind of the producers for this. And we had a lot of amazing help from guest musicians too. They gave their input and helped kind of shape the songs and the sounds that we use for the album as well. And I guess we should probably give a producer credit to our sound engineer who mixed and mastered this album too. His name's Josh Clark. He's over in like Bath area of England and the UK. And he had a big part in shaping these songs to sound the way that they do as well. It made this DIY project sound a lot better than it probably should have.
Once again, that proves the sound engineer is sometimes the most important guy in the room, or gal, of course. You selected a couple of songs to introduce and close out the episode. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what made you select those particular songs?
Yeah, well, just selfishly, there's some of my favorite from the record. The first track is When the Morning Comes, and this is actually the opening track on the album itself. And I don't know, it was just a song that I felt had overtones for the whole album. It was one of the first songs that we wrote for the record, and it was very personal too, because it's a song kind of about waiting for our child, our daughter, who was born about a year and a half ago.
Congrats.
Kind of during all this process. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been amazing. Her name is Joanna, and she is a firecracker. She's so funny. She's learning words left and right. Yeah, so the song is kind of like a prayer for her, just that knowing that we've never been parents before. This is our first time, and it's scary, and we don't know what to do or how to be the best parents that we can. We're going to make mistakes, but it's just a prayer to God to give us grace, and I hope that Joanna will grow up one day to know that grace as well.
I really was struck by when listening to When the Morning Comes. It's a very emotional and personal piece of music, and then Made to Wander opens up with this blazing solo that had me blinking. I don't know if I can listen that fast, much less play that fast, but really quite awesome.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, they're two of my favorite tracks. Made to Wonder being the title track for the whole album too. It's a song about being frustrated with how fast the day goes by. In fact, we kind of stole the idea from another one of our favorite bands, Blue Highway. I'm a huge Blue Highway fan, and me and Tabitha are both kind of fangirls of Sean Lane and his singing and songwriting and mandolin playing. He's a phenomenal mandolin player. But he has a song called Where Did the Morning Go? It's such a fantastic song. You can just listen to the chorus and you feel this ache and this relatability where you just feel like, where did the morning go? I meant to do so much more with my life. And it's the same idea in this song, Made to Wonder, that our chorus goes, am I made to wonder why everything slips away? I'm not getting any younger. Is there another way? Is there meaning in the day? And it's just this cry out to find if there is meaning beyond just the hustle culture that we're in, this endless treadmill that it feels like we're on, especially in the content creation scene. Making videos for my YouTube channel feels like that. It's a hamster wheel. Am I actually getting anywhere? Is this doing any good? If I put my worth and my meaning in that output, and is a recipe for failure. So the song just talks about, finding rest and hope and someone else besides your own work.
That is such sage advice. I want to focus a little bit on your YouTube presence, if you don't mind. I'll circle back to the mandolin playing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you decided to go do that and how you devised your method of communicating to beginners?
Yeah, well, I'm happy to chat about it. Thanks for watching those videos, man. That means so much. It's taken me a while to kind of get to where I am. I never thought I'd be doing this. I've done YouTube stuff for a while, but I never really thought about it as my main thing until the past maybe 4 or 5 years now. But yeah, I love teaching. I didn't have a teacher growing up, so I actually didn't know anyone else who played mandolin when I first started playing.
Wow.
So it was a very kind of lonely journey for me at the beginning. None of my family or friends knew about bluegrass or anything adjacent to the mandolin either. So it was kind of a solo journey for a bit. And I just wish there were stuff like these videos that I make now that I could have learned from back then. I guess YouTube was just starting, but there really wasn't a whole lot of resources out there for learning online. So without a local teacher, without friends to play with or learn from, it was just kind of shooting in the dark. I feel like that's an experience for a lot of mandolin players still, even with the internet being more prevalent now. And my goal in making videos is I want to be that friend that I didn't have. And I want to be like that person's cheerleader to be like, it's okay to like the mandolin. It's a nerdy instrument. It's so niche, but there's so many cool things that you can do with this. And each video, I just try to picture my younger self, be like, what would I find cool? What would I find helpful and inspiring? And so that's my mentality behind making these videos. But it was kind of a journey getting there where for a while I did this Mandolin Monday series on the channel. I guess it was about 10 years ago where I was living in Nashville at the time and didn't have much going on music-wise, but I wanted to have an outlet to keep practicing and work on stuff. And so I decided to do this Mandolin Mondays thing where every Monday I had to share a new video on my YouTube channel to, motivate myself to learn something new. So I did that for 52 weeks. It was a bear, man. And I think it was probably the biggest chapter of growth in my musical ability. But after a whole year of doing that, I realized man, I can't keep doing this at that output. So a friend of mine, Joe K. Walsh, suggested that I start sending the work out to other mandolin players. And Joe was the first guest that I had on the series that next year. And then weekly guests, kept sending in videos for the next 9 years. We went 500 consecutive weeks, which was crazy. So that was a big part of my YouTube experience starting out. And I didn't really think about it much more than just on Mondays, getting something ready to post and getting it posted over on the Mandolin Cafe blog, which Scott Tishner has been a huge support as well. I don't think I'd be doing what I do without Scott and his resource over on the Mandolin Cafe. But then I guess it was 2020 when the pandemic hit. We were kind of isolating in place over in Northern Ireland. We were still waiting for Tabitha's green card to come through after the marriage. And we just had bukus of time like everyone else did. And we were in the countryside of Northern Ireland, and Tabitha had just got a camera. And I was like, oh, well, this is fun. I wonder if I could start figuring out how to use a camera. Because before, like, all my videos were just so low key. It was just a webcam.
Right.
I had a Zoom recorder, didn't have any microphones or recording gear. And so that camera was kind of like my step into the gear acquisition syndrome, like we were talking about earlier, man. Man, recording equipment is expensive, but man, camera gear is, I don't know, maybe comparable. I feel like it's more expensive in some ways too. So I just really enjoy getting to learn this mirrorless camera and figuring out the details, the frame rates, the ISO, the aperture, and all this stuff, and trying to make it look and sound as good as possible. And I started this Patreon page to go along with it, since we weren't really earning money on the road, and so I thought this would be a nice way to kind of fill that gap before we can start touring again. And then it just kind of popped off. I was posting the same lesson videos to that YouTube channel that I was using for the Mandolin Mondays videos, and that kind of built-in audience just started to really connect with it in a big way. So like a year or two later, the Patreon was growing and YouTube was really growing, and I just felt like this was an opportunity that I didn't want to let go. So I just decided to stop touring with the band I was playing in Mile 12 and be able to focus more on being home, making videos, and playing music with the Foreign Landers as well. And that's where we are now. So yeah, it still feels like it's growing at a crazy rate. And I'm so thankful that people are enjoying the stuff. And it's become like a real passion of mine to try to share a side of the mandolin world that maybe people don't get access to, like going to festivals and workshops and getting to interact with some of the big mandolin players out there, doing interviews and asking nerdy questions to Mike Marshall and Katarina Lichtenberg and folks like that. So yeah, I've loved it, and I'm so glad to hear that people have enjoyed it too.
I will admit that mandolin turned out to be just a gateway drug to fiddle for me, but
that's all right.
Yeah, once when you get to the instrument you love, So I picked up the fiddle, and that was like, oh, this is all I want to do now, and it's pretty much. I only have 2 guitars and 2 banjos and a dobro and a lap steel and 6 other instruments, but that's just the nature of musical instruments. But your plan is to continue working on the YouTube channel and continue to publishing content on those platforms.
I'd love to keep doing it for as long as I can. Still figuring out what types of new content I want to continue sharing and what's most helpful for other people. I've done a variety of different things on the YouTube channel, from gear review to technique lessons to actual lessons for specific songs or tunes. I've been realizing that the more useful content for people is definitely the educational content. I would love to have had stuff like that when I was growing up, when I was first playing. And so I have so many ideas for things I would like to do, things I would like to teach. And it's almost hard to kind of rein myself in and focus on one particular thing. I did this beginner series about 3 or 4 years ago on the YouTube channel, which has become kind of the most popular thing that I've put out. And I didn't imagine it would be. It's kind of interesting. I think like the first video has gotten close to 500,000 views now, which is
wow.
And people seem to really connect with it. There's like a companion ebook that goes along with it, and there's 17 videos that kind of build on each other throughout, which is maybe contrary to the common YouTube mentality where you have to have these really catchy titles and thumbnails, and each video has to be separately relatable so that it's clickable. I'm maybe skewing away from that kind of mentality, just because it does feel like I don't love clickbait. I don't love like the whole AI movement as well, where you're just trying to pump out material that people can consume and not actually thinking about the value of the material.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe thinking about doing some more long form content, like over the period of months, like releasing a whole course, or even like constructing material that I've released in previous forms in the past and re-updating tunes, doing collections of tunes and collections of materials that hopefully will be even more valuable to people in the long run. So yeah, that's been what I've been thinking about, trying to think about it being less of an industry decision, less of a commercialism thing, and more of like what would be helpful to people. I just love to help people on their journey with the mandolin, because like I said, I wish I had help on my journey.
Yeah, I'd say this. If you're at all interested in learning more about mandolin, the ebook that you published related to the videos and that combination is extremely powerful. You really did come right across. So now I'm going to ask you the first tough question of this interview. Well,
all right. Yeah.
Now,
I'm ready.
Okay. Brace yourself. I will admit that I tend to have a lot of fiddle players on the show, and my co-host Liz Wolf plays bass as well as sings and guitar, but she's a bass player. We have a lot of bass players on the show. So,
Nice.
But when I get a fiddle player on the show, I will often get into nerdy types of questions. And I think probably the nerdiest discussion I've had was at length discussion about drop tuning on Quebecois style fiddle
Wow, cool.
with Olo de Mers of the Vent du Nord. What's the nerdiest mandolin conversation you've had on your shows?
Well, last year I got to hang out with Harry Clark for an interview video.
Oh,
which was
Harry's great.
Really, really fun. And the video did really well. You know, I think it's just because of his amazing playing and the band that he's in, East Nashgrass, just their success and their amazing musicality. They're one of our favorite bands, me and Tabitha's favorite bands.
Same here.
And yeah, Harry is just like such a deep musician. You know, he's really into the feel and the oral tradition of bluegrass, but he's also like a really deep musician where he's thought about the theory. And he was telling me about how he thinks about modes. I think modes are a really interesting topic, you know, maybe not quite as deep as like cross tuning, Quebecois tunes, but thinking about modes in particular in the setting of bluegrass and what you can get away with. And he was talking about trying to play the D Locrian mode over like a D major fiddle tune, like Angeline the Baker or St. Anne's Reel or something like that. And I didn't think he could pull it off, but he actually did. It was crazy. Even just thinking about all 7 modes, how they're different colors that you can utilize over a major key song, and they just create different tensions and different sounds in really interesting ways. And yeah, just the way that he was thinking about it too was so different than how I thought about it before. It kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff. So just one example of, some great
nerdy,
stuff.
Pretty nerdy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We got to talk with Andy Statman on the show.
Nice.
Talk about someone who's thinking deeply about music and coming up with these, who knows from where, what he thinks about and how he makes chord choices and note choices. Is pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you graduated with a degree in mandolin performance. How does that balance against, one, you mentioned the oral and sort of back porch tradition of bluegrass music, right? So now that's very informal versus I guess, a conservatory type education.
Yeah.
Give us an idea how those two things actually work together.
It's funny enough, I did a video about this like last year, I think it was, and I realized when I was getting ready to make the video, I lost my diploma. I just couldn't find it. It's been
Does that say something about?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's like no one ever asked to see my diploma, and I just totally lost it. I had to reorder it to use just as a prop for that video. But I got a really weird degree. You know, mandolin's still not very common in a lot of academic circles. Of course, there's a great program up at Berkeley for American Roots Strings program, and there's also ETSU if you want to do Appalachian studies and study bluegrass and old time with mandolin. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to play bluegrass or not full time. Like, I love it, and I since went on to play professionally in a few bluegrass bands. I didn't want to like kind of pigeonhole myself just to that one style because I love folks like Mike Marshall and Chris Thiele who played Bach and played you know, all sorts of styles on the mandolin. So I did apply to ETSU. Berkeley was out of my price range at the time and just didn't really feel like a good fit. And then I applied to a few other schools too. Like I applied to the College of Charleston jazz program with the mandolin, and they were willing to take me on. Ended up contacting a few liberal arts schools to see if I could do more of a traditional classical degree on the mandolin, and ended up going with this place called Bryan College, this tiny school over in like near Chattanooga, Tennessee. Only like 800 students, and it's not just a music school too. Like the music department was probably like 70 people strong, something like that. So what I loved about it though is that they gave me my own practice room, so I could just practice as much as I wanted to. They let me study with whatever mandolin player I wanted to, and then they kind of let me just have free reign over some of the more instrument-specific classes and do independent studies. Otherwise, my education was more traditional, where I did 4 semesters of music history, 4 semesters of music theory and ear training, and even stuff like conducting and piano classes, just because that's kind of, you know, par for the course for music degrees. I sometimes wonder if I had gone to ETSU, if my life would have been a lot better. I did enjoy my time. I only did like 2.5 years there to finish a degree since I had some credits in advance. And I don't know if I could have stuck it much longer than that, just because I ended up not really loving classical music as much as I thought I would, even though it is amazing. And I still try to play Bach and try to work on some of that stuff for technique and for musicality. At the time, ETSU had Adam Steffi teaching mandolin. I was like, wow, that would have been really cool to work with him. But kind of the saving grace of my education was I got to work with Matt Flinner, who's another mandolin hero of mine. And he is just such an incredible musician and knows so much about music. He actually did something similar. He did a music degree with the mandolin, a music composition degree back in the day. And so he was really understanding my situation and just knew how to, just feed me as much information as possible. I was just soaking everything up. He was telling me about different mandolin players to listen to, different classical composers to listen to. He was getting me to try dog music and jazz for the first time, getting me to learn scales and theory and modes and stuff like that, like we were talking about for the first time. So he really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. But getting back to the original question about like weighing it between the Arles tradition and the academic scene, I think it's different for everyone. I didn't grow up playing this music. Like I started mandolin when I was 13, and even after that, my first Bluegrass Festival experience was when I was 19. So it was a very slow process for me, and I was a late bloomer. I still feel like that sometimes. And for folks who just grew up from day one going to Merle Fest and Gray Fox and things like that and going to play at campsites from the age of 3 or 4, they're going to be in a different position where they're going to actually be living and breathing the music. Whereas for me, I kind of needed a safe space as an older teenager and young adult to really figure that out myself. And that's what my education was. I just spent so much time in that practice room that they gave me, just woodshedding and trying different stuff. And yeah, I think it's a case by case scenario for sure. And they both have strengths and weaknesses, in my opinion.
Yeah, I put that together in my mind as you were speaking, that your sort of solo journey going into your education was really supported by your ability to just sort of seclude yourself in the practice room and continue that solo journey while you're also acquiring the degree. So that's a great combination. All right, next tough question.
Ready.
Mount Rushmore is 4 iconic individuals who are most meaningful to our nation. So if I ask you to choose your Mount Rushmore, that's 4 names only of mandolin players. And it doesn't have to be the most famous or the fastest player, whatever, the ones who are most meaningful to you. What 4 would you choose and why? But only 4.
That is really hard. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question, though. I love that. Yeah, because there would be different answers. Like if it was for the whole mandolin community, it would be a particular 4. But for me personally, who would I choose? That is a good question. So I would say for one, Sam Bush would have to be there. When I was taking lessons with Matt Flinner, I'd never really listened to Sam Bush before, but he opened up my eyes to all of Sam's playing on those Bela Fleck records that they did back in the day. So I remember him telling me one week to go listen to Drive, that Bela Fleck album, and that was just kind of blew me away. And then like the next week he told me to listen to the Bluegrass Sessions, Tales from the Acoustic Planet Volume 2. And that one, I think it might be my favorite record of all time. It's so good just because the sensibilities of the tunes it's just like this perfect balance between modern and traditional, and the players on there is just phenomenal. And Sam Bush is just tearing it up on both those albums. So I think like part of my education, I remember hearing both Matt Flinner and Mike Marshall saying that their college education was just learning every single note that Sam Bush ever played. And so I took that to heart, and I remember transcribing both those albums, and I still can play a lot of those solos. Are just so good. Just Sam's timing and his energy when he plays. Like his note choices, they make so much sense. They're very mandolinistic, very fiddleistic, but it's just the way he plays them. It makes so much more of the notes that he's choosing. Sam would be one choice. Next up, probably have to say David Grisman, because how could you leave him off of the Mount Rushmore of mandolin figureheads? By learning his tunes, I feel like it's a huge education in tune writing where he really pushed the genre more than anyone had before. And just like even thinking about those tunes like Dog's Rag, that has so many different parts, and the arrangement of how they kind of link together and layer unique sounds is pretty extraordinary. Just genre bending in so many ways. So I love his tunes, love jamming on them too. It's so fun when you meet other mandolin players who also know dog tunes, and then all of a sudden like the bluegrass jam just gets derailed and you're playing like Tipsy Gypsy and all sorts of stuff like this. And then let's see, other 2, this is going to be hard. I think I'd have to say Chris Thule would have to be one of them, because he was the first mandolin player that I ever heard. Yeah. My dad brought home that first Nickel Creek record after hearing them play on NPR. And there was like a local record shop downtown Clemson where we lived, and he went and found that record and brought it back. And so I don't think I'd be doing what I do now without his influence. I love most everything that he's done. There was a certain era of Chris that I really loved the most, like that era of, Not All Who Wander Are Lost, and those later Nickel Creek albums in particular just really, kind of were a huge foundation for what I do now, looking towards that for a lot of inspiration and artistic choices. So yeah, Chris, for the
Last
fourth,
one.
that's so hard, man. I don't know. This is going to be really, really challenging. Can I do some honorable mentions after the fourth? Would that be okay?
Yeah, if you must. Yes, of course.
Well, let's say Sierra Hall for the fourth one. It's hard to leave her off the list as well too. And I just love that she's so consistent. Every time I hear her play, even in informal settings, like she's just so accurate with her right hand. She's so level with all of her notes. They have like this intentionality and an evenness to them that you don't hear in many mandolin players. I love how she plays really quietly too. Like it's like she's not trying to win a volume competition like I try to do sometimes when I'm at the jam. She's supportive. She brings other people up, and then when it's her time to take a break, she just does what she does best, and it's incredible. And everyone just follows suit and is able to kind of come around that. I love that so much. But yeah, honorable mentions, I would say Ronnie McCurry for sure.
Yeah.
Jacob Jolliffe and Matt Mundy. Matt Mundy's like, wow, what a killer guy.
Oh.
He's like if Andy Statman and Sam Bush somehow got combined into the same mandolin players.
Amazing. Oh, that's a great Mount Rushmore and a great honorable. I'm glad you got Andy in there as well. So are you still involved with the jam culture? Do you get out and jam and join the circle now and then?
A little bit, yeah. Not as much as I would like to, but just with having a kid now, I don't get out as much as I would like. There's this actually great jam I just discovered here in Greenville, South Carolina, close to where we live, at Fire Forge Brewery on Tuesday nights. This jam at Fire Forge here in town is really good. There's a lot of great local players who come out to that. There's lists of other jams we've been meaning to go to, but we just have been trying to sleep instead of going out.
Well, there's the little one to consider.
Yeah.
So I lead several jams here in New York, and they're typically slow medium jams. And it doesn't take much to bust a jam like that.
Sure.
So you just get you get a song that's kind of crooked or has a fourth or fifth chord that's unusual, and probably everybody scratching their head. What does it take to bust a jam that you are in?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. I think similar things. If it's a really crooked tune, or if there's some crazy chords that aren't common, that can throw anyone for a loop, I think. But yeah, for me, I'm not usually the one doing the busting. I'm the one who usually gets busted, I think. So yeah, like even certain tempos, I know what you mean. Like in the advanced scenes, they just get so fast, and it's hard for me to keep up. But I love trying, and that's the thing. It's taken me a while to love. Love the opportunity to fall on my face and make a fool of myself. Because the more you do that, the easier it gets, and the least often it happens, I guess. So yeah, you just have so much to learn. I feel like in a lot of jams, I'm in that position where I have the most to learn, which is like the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Playing with people who are better than you, then that's one of the best ways to get better faster.
Well, when we talked to Jake Jolliffe on the show, probably one of the most sage pieces of wisdom I've heard shared is, listen, the first 500 breaks you take are going to suck. They just are. So get through, just do them and get through them, right?
Yep.
And then your odds of having a good break start increasing. So I want to ask you one more tough but very meaningful question. Somewhere out there, there's a 13-year-old David or Donna Benedict who is just looking to get started on the mandolin. What's your advice to him or her?
Well, for me, like I didn't seek out those jams, honestly. Like it's taken me a while to get to that point where I feel okay making a fool of myself in front of other people. And I wish I'd gotten to that point sooner, because it was like probably like 3 or 4 years into my playing that I started playing with other people and started to get out there and try to pursue other folks to play with. And I wish I'd done that so much sooner, because you just always feel like, oh, I wish I was better, or I'm going to wait until I can play this speed, or wait until I have this many songs learned. And that's just going to hold you back in the long run. So that would be definitely my main piece of advice, is just try to go out and play with other people, because it's so much fun. And that's going to be even more inspiring. If you're having fun with the instrument and you see other people having fun, it really just is this positive cycle where it just makes you want to play more and get better faster.
Okay, so one other question I want to ask you. The listeners can't see it, but I see the instruments hanging on the wall behind you. So I think I know the answer to this question.
Yeah.
Keep your instruments in the case and take them out and practice, or leave them hanging on the wall. So anytime you feel like it, just you pluck it off the wall and play.
Yeah. Well, I've mostly been keeping mine out, but that's because we live in South Carolina. It's very temperate. I don't really have to worry about humidification that much. I imagine where you're at in Brooklyn, you have to be real careful about that with the heating during the winter and everything. Especially I've got this 100-year-old Gibson A model down there at the bottom, and I want to be real careful about that one. So I do keep some humidifiers on here during the winter. But for me, yeah, keeping them out makes it a lot easier to be reminded to play. It's weird how I have to be reminded to play just because I've been playing for over 20 years now. But it's if I don't see it often, I don't think about it. I get distracted by other things going on. So even having, like, I've got way too many instruments. I think I've got like 8 mandolins at the minute. I've given some away. I used to have more. But, I have enough. I should do this where I keep one in every room. So that way there's always one nearby.
Like a vampire, you have a coffin handy everywhere you go.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, even this room is upstairs where I keep most of the mandolins, but I find I don't practice as much unless I keep a mandolin downstairs as well, where the main floor is. I try to have one in the living room downstairs as well, just to have readily available to practice and play and just have fun with. That's been fun with our girl, Joanna. She's got a little banjo ukulele, so we have little jam sessions together with her as well, which has been really fun.
That's amazing. I leave a fiddle hanging on the wall all the time, and I'll wake up and say, oh, and there's a tune in my head, and I just get up and go grab the thing down and start playing.
That's so good.
My wife thinks like, what the hell are you doing? Fortunately, we live in a private house, so I don't think I'm disturbing the neighbors. I haven't gotten any complaints yet. Well, I know you have some recent albums and you have quite a discography. Are you planning any touring or shows or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Me and Tabitha are doing some shows as the Foreign Landers this year. We're doing some fun stuff that I'm really excited about. We're doing Nimble Fingers Festival and Workshop over in British Columbia this summer, and then a few other festivals. Like just announced, we are going to be playing at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival in the Carolinas here, which we're stoked about. Man, their lineup is stacked. This year's crazy. It always is, but like this year even more so. They've got Bela Fleck and My Bluegrass Heart and the Avett Brothers, and all sorts of folks. So that'll be a blast. And then, yeah, a few other shows we're going to be announcing soon. I'm not touring quite as much. When I was living up in Boston, we did quite a lot with Mile 12, like 100 to 120 days a year, and that just kind of like became a little bit too much, like exhausting for everyone. So we are doing a lot less now, just with Joanna too. But the nice thing is that we still get to focus on making music, doing videos and recording new music here at home, since we're such a DIY operation. It's been great. You can just do it whenever we want to.
Nice. Have you checked out the bluegrass and festival scene in Australia at all?
Oh yeah, we went there with Mile 12. It must have been like 2017, I think it is, and we played the Dorgo Folk and Bluegrass Festival in New South Wales, which was amazing. Tabitha actually went there with her other band, Midnight Sky Racer, and they did another festival in Beechworth. I can't remember what it's called, but it was another bluegrass festival there too.
Yeah, I was amazed. I visited there. My daughter and her husband live in Sydney, and we caught the National Folk Festival, which is incredible.
Oh, nice.
The most dangerous thing about that, they had a room all with all the local instrument makers. But also there's a very cool festival called Crest Fest.
Oh.
Southern Australia was the gold rush territory, just like the West was here in the U.S. And there were all these incredible boom towns, which were wealthy and beautifully constructed and great buildings and everything, and then deserted. So they basically looked at their local town and all these great spaces, and they just put together an acoustic festival utilizing all of these great spaces. And you go to all these places and there's bluegrass there,
I know, right? You can't escape it.
I know. Do you do Scottish music as well?
Not as much, mostly, like Irish and Northern Irish music and then stuff from this side of the Atlantic. But I would love to learn more Scottish music. I know it's so related to Irish music too.
Yeah. And so I hope to get a chance to catch up with you at some point. Maybe I'll get to see if you're up in the New York area, or do you ever make it up to Brooklyn?
We did a show at Rockwood a couple of years ago, but last time I was in Brooklyn, I think we did the Jalopy Theater with Mile 12. It was a while back, but it would be fun to come back and play up there sometime soon.
Well, I hope you can make it. I really do. All right, David, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for taking time with us. And we look forward to running to you somewhere along the circuit.
Yeah, likewise. This has been so fun. Thanks for having me.
So try to be ready just in case. When the morning comes, all around us, there'll be joy.
All right, listeners, let's test your mandolin knowledge. We're going to play some snips of mandolinists playing. Let's see if you can figure out who they are. So as not to make it too difficult, all of the mandolinists in this quiz were mentioned at least in the interview we just listened to. So let's start off with mandolinist number 1. That was the amazing Harry Clark. He's the mandolinist in East Nash Grass. He's been playing the instrument since he's 10 years old and was the 2022 IBMA Momentum Instrumentalist Awardee. That song was such a short time. And if you've ever seen Harry play or gotten to hear him play his recordings, I think you'd agree he's a dynamic and inspiring player. Let's move on to mandolinist number 2. Have a listen. That, of course, was the legendary Andy Statman playing the Charleston Ramble. Now, Andy's been around since the 70s, and he's a pioneer in bluegrass, but also klezmer, jazz, and many other styles. He's also a virtuoso on the clarinet, as if being a master on the mandolin's not enough. He was Grammy nominated, and what an amazing player. Note choice, chord choice, fluency. He's got it all. So that was Andy Statman. Let's move on. And mandolinist number 3. So those of us around the New York area may recognize the dynamic guitar playing of Michael Dave's backing up Chris Thiele on Rabbit in the Log. Chris, of course, is a true master of the instrument and spans genres effortlessly. Has played with the Punch Brothers, played with Nickel Creek, and has pushed the edges of the genre in every conceivable direction. Got to see him in concert with Billy Strings, where he spent maybe 20 minutes on stage doing this incredible modern interpretive music, which absolutely blew me away. So Chris does bluegrass, but Chris does everything else too. All right, let's move on to mandolinist number 4, our final mandolinist. Okay, so maybe this one was a little sneaky. That was David Benedict, our guest in this episode, playing Into the True Country. Enough said about David. Incredible player, incredibly generous teacher, sharing his knowledge. Really encourage you to listen to the music of his band, the Foreign Landers. Okay, so that's our mandolin quiz. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you scored a few, maybe you didn't. I think that the important part is we get to hear these amazing mandolin players, follow up and listen to their music. All this music will be listed in our program notes. And thanks for taking the quiz. David is not only an amazing mandolin player, and the DIY band he and his wife Tabitha have is turning out some great music. He's got a lot to say on a lot of topics. I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. And I wonder how you did on your mandolin quiz. So before we go, I want to remind you, if you want to tell your Gray Fox story, click the link in the program notes to schedule time or drop a line to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com to set up some time. Follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn. Visit us, bluegrassbrooklyn.com. And for jams around the metro area and beyond, bluegrassjamsnearme.com. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you around the jam circle.
Wake up at 6, coffee's on, take a walk. Keep your head down, thing